Greetings, brothers and sisters. This MNFA, Brian Stelsa, is 36 years old. Now, I said this in a video yesterday, and I got more comments about that than anything else. And I went, how can that be true? Like, I was like in disbelief when I heard it yesterday. But then as it sort of sunk in, I was like, how is this guy only 36 MNF years old, right? Like, I mean, people were shocked on my channel, in the video yesterday, comments, and I had to double check it. Like, that's something where, that almost never happens, where, I saw something and I reported it or whatever, joked about it, and then had to do a double take because it just was so unbelievable. Because, we live in a time where unbelievable stuff's happening on a daily basis, right? Where things are so effed up that we are like, here's this guy right here. Look at him. This is this weird smile that he does. This smile, like think about this smile, right? Think about this MNFer here. I mean, I'll go to him in a second. Chris Cuomo is going Scorched Earth on CNN, and Jeff Zucker is just the first casualty. And this guy might be the next. And we're going to go through it. But let's just take a moment to look at this fake Joker smile, this weird little dude, and that he's 36 years old. Like, because I want to get into that too as we go through this. I got other stuff to do on my other channel today. Either I'm going to put up that video first or second. Jojo Magoo talking about the thing that happened in Syria and the Biden administration telling the media, don't ask questions and don't ask for proof, just trust us, right? And then a Joe Rogan Spotify update about their CEO to do on my other channel and some more stuff here. It's kind of like a lot of interesting things. But let's just take a moment here and realize here he is with his little gremlin wife. Like she's wearing like some house coat, right? Like something my grandmother used to wear. Like, here he is when he was in his 20s. He looks like that dude, the brother or whatever on My Name is Earl, right? Except he's much shorter. But let's get into it here with CNN. What's wrong, Pumpkin? You look a little sad. You look a little somber. Come on, Pumpkin. It's not that bad. What's going on? Did somebody die?
We have news now to report involving our network. CNN President Jeff Zucker has just resigned after...
Boom. You're sad. She's getting her somber face on. She can't wear a somber tie. She's got to go heavy on the somber face.
Disclosing a consensual relationship with a colleague. Jeff has led our company, led CNN for the last 9 years.
And it sucked those 9 years. It's gotten consistently worse. So he sucked. Should have been fired long ago. CNN is by far much worse than it was 9 years ago. We all know it, right?
Joining me now is CNN chief media correspondent, host of Reliable Sources, Brian Stelter. Brian, what more do you have?
As you said, Kate, Zucker's been a larger-than-life figure at this news organization for nearly a decade, a pioneering figure. And now his resignation is stunning this newsroom and the news industry.
You guys are stunned. Look at this guy. He's stunned. Now, look at this MNF right here. He didn't even come in with a somber tie, so that's already what it is. Look at this 36-year-old man. Now, I mock people regularly on this YouTube channel, right? It's, I'm good at it. And it's not a spiritual behavior. I get people saying, how is mocking people, heartful? And I'm like, well, it's not, right? I mean, it is in a way that I'm dealing with a cesspit and I have to find some way to cope with it. It's my way of coping with this job and the depravity I deal with every day. But it's not like, a higher level behavior. I mock people. And, this channel's about people's internal worlds, right? My internal world, your internal world, and the internal world of the subjects I cover here. Much more important to me to talk about their internal worlds, what's inside of them. I've been trained as a counselor. I did assessment measures and, psychological assessments and use assessment measure tools. And I've just always been good at reading people's internal world. And then, of course, being a heartfulness practitioner for so many years and looking inside. That's something that I do, and, I feel like I do well. Reading people and understanding what's going on inside of people. And when I mock people, it's for their dysfunction inside of them especially when they're being fake and lying and things like this. What I don't like to do is mock people for their physical appearance. Like when I call somebody a ghoul, it's the ghoul inside. It's not necessarily, well, some of them, it's the reflection of their inner condition outside of themselves. Like with Pete Davidson, he looks like a ghoul, but has a ghoul inside, right? Celine Dion is a ghoul inside, and now that's manifesting to what she looks like on the outside, right? But, people's personal appearances is something I really don't get into. Like, I don't care about it so much myself, right? I don't like addressing things that people can't control, right? Things about whatever your personal appearance is, right? And so you'll hear me say things, but what I'm talking about mostly is a reflection of their inner condition manifesting in the outer world, manifesting in what they present as a product, as who they are, right? Because someone can be, ugly and be a gem, a wonderful person on the inside. People could have, they could have some deformity, some, accident or something, and, their skin, and they look like some sort of a monster, right? Or something like that. And they have wonderful hearts, beautiful people, right? And I would prefer that than a beautiful person with a bad heart, right? And so with Brian Stelter, and this isn't me like mocking his limitations as a human being, but here's a guy who's short, he's overweight, he's bald, he's got a voice that sounds like it's a woman's voice, and he's got that weird smile, and he does his shitty job as a reporter, right? He sucks at his job. I mean, he's horrible at it, and his personality isn't good, and he's kind of weird. And to add to that, he looks 15 years older than he actually is, right? And so how is this guy on TV as a reporter? Now, I'm a person who complains about, like, local news that, like, if you go to, like, Alabama and you listen to the local news people, they don't talk with a Southern accent, right? You go anywhere in the country, New York and Chicago, and the local news people don't talk with the accent that the people who live in the city or live in the region talk with, right? And I don't understand that. They all have that sort of, Midwestern, very, suburban, cul-de-sac type of way of talking. Hey, this is the news, right? And the way that they express themselves all across the country. And, they try to get pretty people to do the news, right? But even the people who they put in who are maybe different in terms of their demographic are very much the same as like fake people who read the news with a certain way of talking. And I don't like that, right? I like diversity, and I like people, a reflection of what is, in terms of different accents and different, whatever, body types or whatever. And so for that reason, I should applaud CNN for hiring this little troll, right? Because the guy, he doesn't have anything going for him. I mean, like, maybe he's smart. I don't know, like, not in a way that I think. But, he really doesn't have anything going for him as a human being and as a reporter. And I should be like, hey, CNN, thanks for doing this for this, this dude, right? But he's also annoying, And so, yeah, doesn't fit the mold, but he's even worse, and he's like one of the worst ones at CNN. Like, I don't know if he's worse than Don Lemon or Chris Cuomo's, but, kinda, he's like them, but on a superficial level, he's even worse, right? In terms of appearance, he might be the worst one. And he's always hammering people in the truth community, even worse than they are. He's Brian Stelter.
Now, let me read you his memo in full and then put it into context for the viewers. He wrote to staffers a few minutes ago, quote, as part of the investigation into Chris Cuomo's tenure at CNN, Cuomo, of course, fired last month, Zucker says, I was asked about...
It's Cuomo who brought him down. That, he had a dispute with Cuomo. We'll get into it in a moment. But, he might be Brian Stelter's dad.
A consensual relationship with my closest colleague, someone I have worked with for more than 20 years. I acknowledged the relationship evolved in recent years. I was required to disclose it when it began, but I didn't. I was wrong. As a result, I am resigning today. Zucker.
So that means he worked with this person, you know, his the bromance that he's having. He worked with her before CNN because he's only been there 9 years. So he's got a little thing here. There you go, Stelter.
A stunner for the CNN newsroom and for Turner Sports, which he also oversaw in recent years. Now, the head of Warner Media, Jason Kilar, has just announced that he will be announcing an interim leadership plan shortly. Now,
like, doesn't look like a guy that you want to hang with, right? And, you know, Brian Stelter. Like, how are you 36, Brian? But aside from being 36, now it's coming out how bad he sucks. Now, I read this yesterday from New York Post. Then you have this from Fox. Insiders are calling for CNN anchor Brian Stelter to be fired. And this one, CNN Brian Stelter accused of serving as Jeff Zucker's attack dog by smearing Radar before scandalous report. So Radar Online had this, and they were going to report it, and Brian Stelter mocked them as being whatever, fake news and whatever. Turns out they're more real news because this was his job, right? This was something that Brian Stelter was supposed to be doing. He was the chief media correspondent. He reports on the media. He does things with other things, with Fox and these places. If Fox had this problem, he'd be reporting it. He couldn't wait to report it, right? And so they all knew about this affair, and they were hanging, you know, together. They all knew about it, right? And he didn't report it. So because that's his job, his specific job, he should be fired.
But he's the media guy, never reported it. He missed the biggest story of the year for CNN.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that not only did Brian Stelter not cover this whatsoever as their media reporter, he actually went after the outlet that did report it. Radar Online.
This guy's going with the water sign here. And so it's Brian Stelter. You know, somebody commented that they hold their hands in this position. You know, I talked about the water sign. But with people who are celebrities, especially if you're doing a book cover, like Candace Cameron Bure or Trump, everything they do is scrutinized. They have people who will say, you know, will pose them, right? I mean, they have so many levels of people who are about their brand, and every gesture they make, everything that they do is scrutinized. And, you know, if they do something like that, it's different than if you do it. Like the person said, you know, sometimes I make the okay sign. Well, you know, it's a weird thing to do anyway. Like I've never made the okay sign in my life. But it's different if you do it and you don't know and you're just some random person doing it organically than if you are, I don't know if you hear my dog barking. If you're doing it in some way where you have a team of people that are scrutinizing every act or everything that you do.
the information wars are raging.
Wait a minute. Are you stealing Alex Jones's? They've done this before where they have this other thing called Reality Check where they were stealing that guy Ben, whatever his name is thing, which is, you know, to me he's another shill, but they're stealing this at CNN. They're stealing these fake truthers platforms. They're not their platforms, but their taglines and things.
The information wars are raging, and real, reliable information is getting lost in a blizzard of BS.
BS. Not, you know, this guy just got caught. Your whole network is BS. You're firing people. Your network is imploding. But no, everyone else, you know, you guys we're getting killed in the ratings because of your guys' BS. You guys like BS, and you don't like what we produce on CNN, non-BS.
That's designed to deceive you. And most of the misinformation is not coming from Russian trolls, meddlers, or other foreign governments. Yeah, that's a problem, but most of this stuff is coming from right in our own backyards.
From the right-wing groups are trained the next generation of social media warriors. It's from Mother Jones. It must be true.
In America, it is fellow Americans peddling smears and racism. In China, it's the Chinese government spewing propaganda. And in India,
it's a government. It's the government in China, but it's the citizens in America. You get it? It's the Chinese government does this, but the American government would never engage in this, even though we have the most extensive network of spies and all this stuff, right? National security agencies. that run and dictate CNN's content.
Well, here's a quote from Facebook's former security chief saying, in India, the disinformation is being driven by India's political parties. All around the world. This is
They don't even have a truther. They don't have truthers in India like we have here, right? There's no truther movement.
a growing problem. Hundreds of years ago, newspaper owners and pamphleteers were able to spread lies. The difference now is the speed and the reach and the allure of the internet.
Yeah, and you guys just can't keep up. With your lies are not as compelling as as the narratives that are being pushed out that have more truth in them. Even though there is lots of lies on the internet, I'm not saying there isn't. There's lots of disinformation from private people and, from businesses and the spy agencies. But CNN sucks, right? Because people don't want to watch it, right? They don't trust you. They don't trust the media. That's why they're moving away from you. You're not addressing your suckiness. And you're not being honest with the implosion of your own network. So aside from that, Jake Tapper says Chris Cuomo blew up CNN after Zucker refused to contract payout. And so this is pretty brutal. CNN's Jake Tapper reportedly accused his network's corporate parent of throwing Jeff Zucker under the bus after the ousted honcho refused to capitulate to Chris Cuomo's demand for a multi-million-dollar payout. Hours after Zucker's resignation Wednesday, Tapper asked Warner CEO Jason Kilar at a tense meeting inside CNN's Washington bureau about the perception that Zucker refusal to pay Cuomo the remaining $18 million on his contract, 18 is 666, ultimately led to him losing his job. 3 times 6 is 18, according to Puck News. Puck News has this story. Jason, if you could address the perception that Chris Cuomo gets fired by CNN, Chris Cuomo hires a high-powered lawyer who has a scorched earth policy, who then makes it very clear to the world that unless Jeff gives Chris Cuomo his money, they're going to blow the place up, Tapper said to Kilar, according to a recording of the meeting obtained by the news site. Stuff starts getting leaked in gossip websites about Jeff and Allison, and then weeks later, Jeff comes forward and discloses this and resigns, not willingly. An outside observer may say, wow, it looks like Chris Cuomo succeeded, Tapper told Kilar during a tense staff meeting. And so here's the inside the CNN newsroom clash with Jason Kilar. And this is, apparently they have all this stuff here at Puck News. And so CNN, think about Chris Cuomo, who hated Trump so much, right? Now, they should have fired Chris Cuomo years ago. They just should have, because he sucked as a reporter. And then they all covered his brother. They built his brother up as a hero after his brother had presided over the most deaths per capita in the country and in the world due to COVID, right? It wasn't just the senior citizens who died because he put people who were infected in the nursing homes with them, the most at-risk group, and then covered up those statistics because they had the WHO and CDC had their own statistics, and they were 10,000 more than New York State was putting out there in terms of deaths, right? And so the official governmental and health bodies had 10,000 more deaths in New York than what Cuomo's government was saying, right? And any reporter worth their salt would have said, hey, this discrepancy, you're saying that there's 10,000 less deaths, would have found out they were covering it up. And during that time, they were treating Andrew Nips Cuomo like he was some sort of a rock star hero and the real president, and all the things they were saying about him, not just at CNN, but all these networks. And every day they were covering his press conference like he was the president and he was some great guy. And it all centered around Chris Cuomo's show, but they all did it at CNN. When they knew the guy had presided over all these, debacle and certainly all the respirator deaths they were having and things that was going on with COVID in New York. New York handled it worse than anyone, but they were saying they handled it better. And so instead of dealing with that, they came up with some bogus sexual harassment, which was real. It just wasn't as important as what they did. And Chris Cuomo refused to cover his brother in a negative way and spied for him. And so he should have been fired. I mean, just the way he handled his brother all along. But CNN should have cleaned house because it was embarrassing what they did, right? Not just with Chris Cuomo, but, all these staff members. And Jake Tapper even kind of said that he had, whatever. And Jake Tapper sucks, but he had reservations about the way this was handled. Chris Cuomo, who was all about truth and, whatever, Joe CNN, he should have been fired. Instead of taking responsibility, he hires a brutal lawyer and goes scorched earth and is exposing secrets and things to do with CNN. And so now you have this guy, their number one. He was their star. He was their number one show. He's gone. Jeff Zucker, the guy in charge of CNN, especially during the Trump years, because that's what they were in their heyday, he's gone. Longtime CNN producer Jeff Grisham was ashamed after he was after arrest for child sex trafficking, right? And so this guy, Jeff Griffin, is somebody who is fired as well, and he was a Cuomo producer. They have some serious things going on, right? With this clown Jeff Griffin. I mean, and there was another producer who was under investigation. Here's this guy. Look at this dude. All right? Come on. Here he is with Chris Cuomo's little baby on his thing. There they are. He's got his hand behind Chris Cuomo's head. Chris Cuomo's got a look of angst on his face. And so this guy and these guys, right? I mean, this guy is, he didn't end his ending and his ending. And this guy, now Jeff Zucker. And so it's a complete mess over there. And this is something YouTube calls authoritative news, that you're supposed to, their algorithms now promote Fox News, a little bit less, but Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN. When you Google something and you're looking for like truther news, you get this kind of news instead. You're watching one of my videos and then autoplay plays a video from Fox directly after one of my videos, because they're trying to push these mainstream news outlets. Fox has sucked for years, and MSNBC has sucked for years, and CNN is literally imploding now of its own depravity. Here are these two guys, right? Two fired guys now. This guy's fired for, sex trafficking children. This guy's fired for being Chris Cuomo. And this is, they're covering here on Fox. And now Jeff Zucker, who oversaw all those things, is having an affair with somebody without disclosing it, and he's gone. And Brian Stelter should be gone as well now because of his complete failure. So think about all those things. 36-year-old Brian Stelter, and CNN has crumbled right before our eyes, imploded. I mean, all the things that and look at the other people who are all anti-Trump in their hypocrisy. Not that Trump was great, but they were, there was hypocrisy in their position on Trump, right? And you talk about Alec Baldwin, who, did that horrible Trump impression, was really just an exaggeration of himself, who has ties to Zucker, who was at NBC. Him and Zucker are, Alec Baldwin and Zucker are linked together, right? And so all these people are gone now, right? They all went after Trump, and the things that they're being accused of are things that Trump, they accuse Trump of doing and being. Like they're just like Trump, right? Like they're not better than Trump. They're not better than you, but they tell you they are. Stock falls as Facebook parent company Meta plummets. Meta sank after forecasting revenue well below analysts' expectations for the quarter. So this Meta thing, they're trying to suck people in even deeper to Facebook. People already bummed out with Facebook, and they rolled out this virtual reality stuff they're doing. I have all these different, I have my Pockets of the Future page open where people send me messages, and my personal Paul Romano Facebook page open where people send me messages. And they keep on messing with the Pockets of the Future one. They made me divide those accounts, which has been a hassle for me. I covered that in an earlier video. And I opened it up the other day, and my message thing, whatever it was now the Meta thing. Like they just forced Meta on me. Like it took me a while to get the regular one back, right? they're constantly trying to force that message, the messenger thing. And then I recently found out that they ask you questions, messenger asks you questions like, tell me more about yourself. And you think it came from the other person on the other end of the message. And so like an idiot, I didn't do it because I don't respond to things like that, right? But people have sent me long, like 2-page histories of their lives. And I'm like, why are you sending me this? Because they've been duped by the messenger app into thinking I asked them, tell me more about yourself or whatever it is, right? And so, and things like, where do you live and things like this, right? Just personal questions that people shouldn't be talking about to, on the internet like that, right? And so they're so invasive. That messenger app is so invasive, and there's all these problems. And now they want to get more into your internal world and have you live in their, meta universe that they created. And fortunately, it's tanking, and their stock is plummeting because, it's kind of a disaster. I got a bunch of other things to get to. Of course, there's a spiritual gathering going on for the Heartfulness System right now, the Lology Basant gathering, the first one of the year. And there's a sitting last night or this morning, and then there's going to be, 4 other sittings, and things that I want to focus on as well. I got a big thing to do about that movie American Beauty. I had a realization about that. I'm going to post that in my other channel. And they got something to do with Alec Baldwin's stalker, right? And I was going to kind of cover the Olympics, and there's now Russia and China unity that's happening. And so it's really like everything's going in an expedited fashion. So I want to get all that stuff in the next couple of days, or today and tomorrow, hopefully. But for now, Brian Stelter cannot be 36 years old. Like, how is that possible? This is Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.